in an old, boring, super tiny apartment without a bathroom. There's Jahy, complaining about her hateful lifestyle, when in reality, she was once the right hand of the Demon King and the second most powerful being in the Dark World. She enjoyed great authority, power, and beauty. A magnificent life, until a pink magical girl attacked, destroying the mana crystal that governs magical powers and consequently bringing an end to the demon realm. That's how Jahy ended up on Earth, transformed into a little girl, with the incredible conviction of gathering mana crystals to restore her kingdom. But this will be difficult when she can barely survive with the basics in the human world. In her chibi form, she is extremely clumsy and has to ration her daily food portions. However, with the few powers she has left, she is able to temporarily return to her adult form, which allows her to work at a bar in the evenings. Now she has to endure the endearing nicknames given to her by her boss, when she used to be one of the most feared beings in her home. On top of that, she is forced to endure the humiliation of smiling for customers all the time. To make matters worse, her magical power runs out before she finishes work, revealing her chibi appearance to the manager. So she decides to reveal the truth of her terrifying origin, admitting to being a villain from the demon realm capable of creating catastrophe. But contrary to her expectations, the manager is only touched by her adorable appearance and her sad story. The manager knows how much she has had to struggle to adapt to this new world. She embraces Jahy and offers her unconditional support. The little one can't help but be moved, especially when she receives her paycheck envelope, plus a bonus for her good work in the last month. She returns home, struggling with the affectionate feelings that the manager is forcing her to feel, when another one of her challenges appears, the landlady asking for rent for the pigsty of an apartment she lives in. She tries everything to escape the landlady and avoid paying her, until the manager confronts them, revealing that she is the landlady's older sister, and forces them to make amends and settle their accounts, at least for this month. Then Jahy notices that she lost the only mana crystal she had left, the one that allowed her to transform. But she quickly finds it in the possession of the manager, who scolds her for losing such a valuable object. Jahy almost thanks her and happily returns home, until she remembers that she hasn't made any progress in recovering the magical kingdom. In the other world, Jahy lived in the demon castle where everyone adored her and took care of her with the utmost care. Nothing compared to her current reality, where she has to endure the infernal summer heat. That's why she is determined to find a mana crystal to change that lifestyle. Using her own crystal as a tracker, she believes she has detected another one in a jewelry store. She mistakes the huge diamond of a ring for mana crystals, and a customer comes out of the store and recognizes Jahy. It turns out to be Drudge, one of her most loyal servants who idolized her, to the point of accepting her mistreatment with masochistic pleasure. She is surprised by her master's chibi form since it has been easy for her to collect crystals. She assumes Jahy kept that form to gain sympathy from humans and make them pity her. They go to an expensive cafe. The little demon's pocket can only afford plain water, while Drudge orders a delicious-looking dessert. The servant offers her a taste, but she remembers a time when Jahy threw food at her because she had touched it already. Her bad actions rebounded on her. Later, Jahy has to lie, claiming that she can't show her secret base of operations yet. She does this to prevent Drudge from discovering the wretched hovel where she is staying. The next day, Jahy's crystal search leads her to an impressive building. Coincidentally, Drudge lives there too. Inside, the chibi couldn't help but remember the comforts of her castle. In addition, Drudge boasted about all the technological gadgets in her apartment, annoying the little one with her arrogance. To appease her anger, Jahy scolds her for benefiting so much from human devices when she should long for the demon realm. She takes advantage of the servant's distress to steal the crystals kept on a shelf, activating the security system that locks her in a cage. Drudge cannot think ill of her master and is moved to tears because her lady sacrificed herself to demonstrate the flaws in the security system in her home. Jahy becomes angry and embarks on a journey through the forest to search for her own crystals. A crow steals her pendant, she loses all her food, falls off a cliff, and it starts raining. Despite all the hardships, she wants to save a fledgling by returning it to its nest, and there she finds her pendant and a huge mana crystal. In the end, she realizes she is at the edge of the forest, near her apartment, and the landlady helps her return while injured. However, she still refuses to accept rent payment for the favor. Now Jahy maintains her original form with the huge mana crystal hanging from her neck. She boasts to the manager, who scolds her because the object gets in the way and is dangerous. But she convinces her by claiming that now she can work more hours. Jahy seems to suffer from some kind of bipolarity. At first, she happily works late. Then she gets angry because she should be restoring her kingdom. Finally, the manager thanks her for her help, and the demoness is content again with the praise. Her boss, with a sweet face, manipulates her into using the crystal for the most difficult household tasks, like unclogging the sink or cleaning the greasy extractor fan. The crystal ends up losing all its power, and Jahy reverts to her pitiful chibi form. Seeking someone who would understand her, she summons Drudge, who is pleased to see her great master. Jahy purposely shows her the crystal. She begins to recount how she obtained it, altering some details to omit her pathetic experience, and it is Drudge who adds epic details to the adventure of hunting down a beast and killing its chicks. When in reality, Jahy saved the chicks. Drudge regrets not being present to witness the amazing feats of the most powerful woman she knows. But she feels satisfied to confirm that, even though her appearance has changed, the great Jahy continues to be cruel and ruthless. The demoness cannot deny her, especially when Drudge shows her a truck full of crystals she collected in the last month. Jahy can only lament in desperation. After that, one of the last things she could tolerate happened to her. She encountered Drudge at the restaurant entrance. To defuse the situation, she pretended to be the owner and blocked her way, claiming that they were closing. Then the manager appeared, contradicting everything Jahy said. Drudge's emotions fluctuated, emanating a demonic aura every now and then, seeing a human calling her master by an affectionate nickname and giving her orders. But Jahy always found a way to turn the situation around and excuse herself by saying that she requested to be treated like that for appearances, and the restaurant was a means she used to gather information about the crystals. Drudge understood that Jahy not only wanted to restore the demon realm but also conquer the human world. The servant had to be content with receiving her master's attention and happily enjoyed each of the meals she brought her. Finally, Jahy sent her home happily, although now she had to pay a bill equivalent to her 3-day salary. In the demon realm, one of the elites believed that only the strongest had the right to sit on the throne, and that person wasn't Jahy. Now in the human world, Sarva, who considered herself the true strongest, was looking for her sworn enemy to defeat her and claim the right to control the Dark Kingdom. Before her realm fell, she challenged Jahy many times. She lost in each one of them. Nevertheless, she believes she is more powerful and intelligent, she just has to prove it. Although she shows a lot of confidence, when she finally finds Jahy, she almost wets her pants and hides. She takes out a potion that will amplify her powers to fight against Jahy, a potion that took her 3 months to create. But when the powerful demoness withdraws, Sarva gets agitated and accidentally breaks the potion bottle. Her last resort would be to lick the spilled substance from the floor. She is almost determined to do it, until a dog beats her to it and consumes it, transforming into a giant dog in the middle of the street. The news reports that a giant dog attacked a girl dressed as a magical girl. Sarva's next plan is to eat a shape-shifting candy to take on Jahy's appearance and do foolish things so that her subjects and followers believe she is stupid and abandon her. As she takes on her arch-rival's form, she encounters the landlady, who forces her to pay the rent. Then she arrives at the restaurant, where she also has to work hard. But finally, the manager praises her for her good work and gives her food. Sarva is delighted with the manager, but realizes that Jahy must have discovered that she was taking her form to send those terrifying women who forced her to do unpleasant things. When in reality, Jahy missed work because she overslept. Returning to pathetic Jahy, she runs out of money to survive the following week, all because she wasted a lot in the search for crystals. But throwing a tantrum on the floor wouldn't solve her problems. She goes to the market to invest the last 360 yen she has left, but can't resist the delicacies and ends up spending it all on food. The manager notices that Jahy is struggling and advances her weekly paycheck to resolve the issue once and for all. This moves the demoness, who finally happily embraces her dear boss. Later on, thanks to the excellent service Jahy provides to the customers, the manager decides to promote her to the leader of the employees, although for now she is the only employee. Jahy can only understand that it is an important position that reminds her of her best times in the demon realm. On her way home, a policeman stops her because there was a report of a person wearing a strange outfit, and she is wearing extremely peculiar clothes. Jahy has been arrested several times before for trespassing in search of crystals, so she flees to avoid being taken to the police station again. Her escape fails, and at the station, they call to say that the person they are looking for is actually blonde and dresses like a magical girl. Jahy is terrified at the thought that it might be the same person who destroyed her realm. She alerts the officers to the danger and accompanies them to intercept the suspect. But it turns out to be a muscular, mustached, and hairy male magical girl. Again in her chibi form, Jahy is shocked and can't recover from what she has seen. To make matters worse, because of her, the manager and the landlady had to pay bail to get her out of the police station. Another day, the powerful demoness, who used to be immune to diseases, gets a cold. This depresses her greatly. If Drudge knew, she would stop respecting her. The landlady and the manager take care of her and bring her medicine. When they leave her alone to rest, the magical girl appears, searching for the mana crystals that are in the apartment, not recognizing that the girl in front of her is actually the great Jahy she defeated before. The landlady discovers her trying to steal the crystal and calls the police. She claims to be a magical girl fighting for justice and protecting humans from the unlucky mana crystals. But that doesn't prevent her from being arrested. The landlady consoles Jahy and puts her to bed, only to discover that even in her sleep, she looks evil. Now Jahy is suspicious. She knows that at any moment, the magical girl could appear to steal her crystal. Although she claims not to be afraid, she hides whenever someone mentions a magical girl. In her attempt to escape from anyone mentioning one, she loses her pendant with the mana crystal. As always, the manager picks it up, showing that she cares about Jahy. She takes the opportunity to tell her to be careful and ask for help when needed. Jahy is once again moved. She used to be strong and feared, Now she is cared for and looked after by a weak human who helps her selflessly. She decides to continue her journey, even though she is warned to take a bath because she got into a trash container. Further on, there is a student with a crystal. Fighting with a human should be easy, so she demands that the student hand it over immediately. The girl recognizes Jahy and reveals her true identity by transforming into the blonde magical girl. She approaches to take the crystal from the little one, but she falls through an open sewer grate. When she climbs back up, a vase falls from the building and smashes against her head, confirming that she is a human suffering the ill effects that the crystals attract when carried by humans. The girl says she is already trained to combat these side effects, and when she experiences bad luck, another is released. The blonde magical girl seems to be missing a screw, as she becomes excited about her bad luck, which continues to attack her, causing objects to fall from the building and crush her against the pavement. In order to free herself from the pile of appliances, she transforms into a magical girl. She claims to be the one who knows the most about the bad luck caused by the crystals and quickly runs off with the crystal that belongs to Jahy, who, in her adult form, dedicates herself to drowning her sorrows in alcohol. She even invites the landlady for a drink to complain to her about how all her efforts have failed, despite working so hard, especially since in the demon realm she didn't have to do anything, whereas now she does chores and still finds time to collect gems. Surprisingly, the already intoxicated landlady said that she admired Jahy because she worked hard. She showered her with praise that moved Jahy. Both of them spent a crazy night celebrating as if they were best friends. Of course, the manager didn't miss the opportunity to record everything on her phone. The next morning, they woke up lying on the floor in a suspicious position. Jahy couldn't believe the videos she saw of herself being nice to her enemy. Since then, she decided not to drink like that again. Jahy-sama's adventure in the human world continues, and this time she tries the experience of exercising with the manager. Although her chibi appearance doesn't help her with that, she struggles to exert even the slightest force. Her physical condition is zero. She can't even coordinate her body properly. She trips and falls. Finally, she gives up in despair. The manager encourages her to keep trying, as it was difficult for her at first too. That's how both of them put in their best effort and gradually improve in their different exercise routines until they can finally feel satisfied. Jahy feels that she has become stronger and could defeat the magical girl. The enthusiasm doesn't last long because the manager achieves her desired weight loss and refuses to exercise further. Jahy returns to her apartment disappointed for wasting energy and mana. At 2 in the morning, she wakes up furious because of the noise in the next room. Although she complains several times to the neighbor on the other side of the wall, the other person does nothing but play various musical instruments. Until the chibi Jahy responds by hitting a pot. The noise competition continues like a concert that lasts until dawn, leaving the little one completely sleep-deprived. When she complains, the landlady says that there is actually no guest in that room. The mysterious event is left at that, and the demoness continues to search for crystals in a park. A child has a rock that could be one. To demand that he hand it over, she takes her original form. But the child is frightened by the sight of a perverted exhibitionist. The child's rock is not a crystal, so she continues her search until a girl named Kokura offers to help her find what she lost. Jahy, with her demon mentality, only thinks of taking advantage of her. As it gets late, Kokura suggests asking for help from the police, but it's clear that Jahy hates them. She runs away, but trips and hurts her knee. Kokura puts a bandage on it, and they do one last search together by the river. The girl discovers a 4-leaf clover and gives it to Jahy for good luck. This world continues to move the chibi demon, calming her troubled heart a little. The great Jahy can't even take a comfortable bath anymore. Drujay's chauffeur comes to pick her up in a limousine where she has prepared a feast for her. The demoness enjoys the luxuries offered by the expensive vehicle, wishing she could live inside it, until they reach their destination and she is kicked out of the car. Drudge wants to show her company and request her support in a task that only she, as the second most powerful in the dark realm, can do. The servant explains that her company provides management consulting to help other companies improve their business. In other words, they take advantage of human greed to take their money. The favor that Drudge needs is for the great Jahy to give a motivational speech to the employees, boasting about her great power and dominance over other creatures. However, when Jahy has the chance to shine in front of her audience, her deranged servant does nothing but interrupt her, stealing her words and saying what she assumes the demoness was going to say. In the end, the chibi couldn't utter a single sentence. But everyone present applauded the speech. The little one wanted to kill her servant for stealing her moment to shine. Drudge invited her to a party, and the manager gave her advice on how to dress up. The girl who only bathed every 3 days in a metal tub was invited to use the public baths. She took advantage of her ability to shrink to pay the child rate. She never imagined that the bath would be so splendid. The manager massaged her back, The shampoo smelled wonderful, and the water was divine and warm. She couldn't believe that she had been missing out on such delights for so long. The best part was that the party Drudge prepared consisted of an exact recreation of her life in the demon realm. She even prepared typical dishes from there and made dolls of the other servants to bring back memories. Jahy was overwhelmed with happiness. Now she had to satisfy her servant's masochism. She threw food in her face, treated her poorly, and used her as a human seat, just like old times. Jahy returned to her modest home more sad than happy. The reason being, she missed her place of origin too much. Amidst tears, she swore that she would gather the crystals to restore it, defeat the magical girl, and return everything to how it was before. We return to Sarva, who has failed in all her plans to defeat Jahy in the human world. To refresh herself, she went to the public baths. Her relaxation session was interrupted when she found Jahy inside. Fearful of being attacked by the powerful demoness, she preferred to keep her distance. But before she knew it, her rival was in the seat next to her. To make matters worse, she was using the shampoo that had cost her a fortune, thinking it was a free item inside the public bath. She was afraid to take the bottle away and be discovered, but the demoness kept using more and more of her precious shampoo. When she finally managed to retrieve it, it was half empty. This reminded her of how Jahy used to constantly annoy her in her realm. She was determined to finally confront her, but she slipped on the soap. Her fall was gently cushioned by the two enormous bulges on the manager's chest, which left her in a state of bliss. This happiness was enough to forget her anger and enjoy the rest of the time in the bath. An excited Jahy went to the supermarket with her entire salary in order to buy weapons that would allow her to defeat the magical girl. Of course, her ability to manage her money properly has not improved at all. She bought unnecessary items that were on sale, and the weapons she found were just toys. Her next, foolproof, plan was to set a sticky trap at the entrance, so that the magical girl would be trapped when she entered. Then she thought she could enter through the window and place the glue there as well, reinforcing her improvised security system with objects that would crash into the blonde girl's head. With everything set up, all that was left was to wait for her to come. It took hours for her to remember that she couldn't know if the magical girl would come that day. But it was too late. She was locked in her own apartment surrounded by traps. The one who actually arrived was the landlady, who got her feet stuck in the glue. Jahy protected her head before being hit by the bathtub and was briefly unconscious. She confessed that she still feared the arrival of the magical girl. Unbeknownst to Jahy, the landlady reinforced the security of the apartments to protect her. Returning to Sarva, the girl encountered Chibi Jahy in a park, but she didn't believe it was her due to her small appearance. She helped her fight off some birds and praised her for being so strong. She asked the little one for advice on how to fight an enemy she wants to defeat, which the Chibi demon was able to encourage her with. Later on, Sarva gathered the will to attack Jahy at her workplace but lost all her courage as soon as she opened the door. Once again, she was defeated without even starting a battle. The magical girl saved Kokura from being hit by a truck. The girl was on her way to meet Jahy in the park and happily told her how she met a real magical girl. Jahy was jealous of her friend's admiration, so she showed her true form for Kokura to praise her as well. She also had to demonstrate her strength and magical abilities. Although each one took a lot of effort, that's why she couldn't work that day. On another occasion, Jahy's bipolarity resurfaced. She performed excellently in her customer service job, then remembered how humiliating it was to treat humans kindly. Not even the manager's compliments pleased her this time. But when some customers said goodbye, she put on her best service face again. She couldn't bear this situation anymore. It was as if someone was manipulating her body to act that way. The manager consoled her when she burst into tears in a corner and tried to praise her again. But Jahy already knew her manipulation tactics to make her work. She left, threatening to quit. In response, the manager only wished her good luck. Her new mission was to follow the magical girl in an attempt to absorb the power of the crystals. As bad luck followed her, she suffered accidents all the time. In a moment of weakness, Jahy could take advantage of her. It was heartbreaking to see all the misfortunes that happened along the way. Despite that, the girl remained unfazed. At school, an accident sent her to the infirmary. Jahy saw her opportunity and attacked, but the girl was fine. Once again, she confirmed how deranged her mind was, getting excited about her bad luck. However, she also enjoyed knowing that her misfortune meant she had freed someone else from suffering. Jahy couldn't believe how a human was willing to sacrifice herself like that. However, she knew that her duty was to recover the crystals. Because the magical girl said she would destroy them, she would need to exert more effort in her mission to fulfill her dreams and return home. Jahy copied a new brilliant idea from the manager: growing vegetables to save money on food. Of course, her farming skills were terrible. After drowning the seed in water, she scolded it for not sprouting. Seeing the manager giving love and talking to her plants, Jahy named her own plant and demanded that it worship her, as that was the only form of love she knew in her realm. She even took it out for a walk as if it were a baby. Finally, the first sprout emerged, but soon the plant showed signs of illness. The little demon panicked, buying all the pesticides and providing an excessive amount of care for her little sprout. When it regained its vitality, the girl celebrated in grand fashion. She continued to take care of her plant, and they even slept together. Finally, it bore fruit. Jahy couldn't be happier. She would eat from her own harvest for the first time. She expected to taste a delicious and sweet tomato flavor. Instead, she burned her mouth with the extra spicy chili peppers, regretting all the effort, love, and time wasted. One day, the landlady suddenly appeared and said she was going to live with her. Jahy became upset and kicked her out. The landlady said she wouldn't charge rent and agreed to stay, but she didn't let Jahy sleep well at night and was too messy. Jahy kicked her out again, and the landlady now offered to do the chores. Jahy went out to attend to her own affairs and was picked up by Drudge. The maid handed her the report on the crystals she had collected with her employees in the last month, a total of 30 small crystals and 6 large ones. Jahy was extremely nervous because she not only didn't get any, but someone stole the only one she had. But Drudge is as schizophrenic as ever and starts apologizing for doing a bad job, begging her mistress to scold her. Of course, that's just to satisfy her masochism. Jahy heaps her with humiliating insults and demands that she pay for all the expensive dishes she will eat at the cafeteria, which means the peak of climax for the fetishistic maid. To avoid the topic of her own collection, Jahy tells her that she found the magical girl who destroyed the kingdom. Her intention was to send the maid to exterminate the blonde girl. But things get complicated when Drudge immediately assumes that Jahy defeated her right away. The worst part is that she can't maintain the lie for long when the magical girl appears at the window. So Jahy says she is a human who turned her into her subordinate. Drudge dies of jealousy and leaves her alone without paying the bill. Aside from taking a hit in her wallet, Jahy finds her house in disarray. The landlady and the manager make amends, and she is once again alone, planning the restoration that has made no progress since she arrived. Jahy finds a mana crystal in the middle of the street. It was so easy to pick up that she thought it was a trap. She approached with great caution. They could attack her suddenly. She could fall into the sewer, just like she made others fall into holes just to mock them. A bomb could also be activated when she lifted the crystal. She didn't know what to do. That's when the manager arrived and wanted to pick it up from the ground instead. Jahy feared that a bomb would explode and rushed to save her. In the end, nothing happened, and Jahy easily obtained a mana crystal. It felt so unreal that she didn't know how to feel. Later, she met up with Kokura in a new park to search for more crystals. They split up to cover more ground. Jahy was behaving in ways that she believed should not be accepted. First, she got excited about finding the slides that Kokura wanted to try out and wanted to find her friend to play together. Then she found a flower and wanted to give it to the girl. To justify her friendly intentions, she told herself it was a way to blackmail the subordinates into following orders. When she looked for the girl, she saw some strange men and quickly transformed to protect her. Jahy couldn't understand how she could instinctively protect a simple human. She was a cruel demon woman who enjoyed doing evil deeds. Kokura saw the flower in her hand and thanked her sweetly for the gesture. Jahy understood that her little friend was different from other humans, and that's why she accepted her. But another problem arose. She saw the police and ran off with the girl on her back. She left Kokura in hiding and distracted the officers, who eventually caught her. She hadn't done anything wrong. The officers chased her because she ran suspiciously when she saw them. Returning to Sarva, the self-proclaimed rival made a new potion to turn Jahy into a defenseless dog. Only she ended up drinking it herself and ended up wandering the streets, unable to resist her canine instincts. To make matters worse, Jahy herself approached to play with her canine version. Unfortunately, her instincts forced her to play along. Later, a heavy rain fell, and the landlady, whom she already feared quite a bit, approached. But the girl gave her the umbrella she had to keep her from getting wet. Then Jahy understood that people are kinder to pets and that she herself didn't feel as scared. Unfortunately, the potion didn't last much longer, and she returned to her true form, naked in the middle of the street. She never created that potion again. The great Jahy is enjoying a well-deserved vacation. Or is she? In reality, they are helping the manager's uncle with his restaurant at the beach. Jahy refused to cooperate. The uncle injured his back, leaving all the responsibility to his nieces. It was very strange that on the day they were supposed to have more customers, the beach was empty. Then, a message came over the loudspeakers announcing the arrival of jellyfish along the coast, making it forbidden to enter the water. The old man commented that before that, rainy days prevented people from visiting the beach, and now this could ruin his business. Jahy didn't see this as a coincidence but as an opportunity to find a mana crystal nearby. She quickly jumped into the water to search for it, but they offered her a dessert if she stayed to work. At noon, the few customers complained about making the trip to the beach in vain. Even a couple of lovers argued and ended their relationship. There were too many signs of bad luck. There definitely had to be a crystal there, a very large one to cause so much misfortune. Jahy completely forgot about the dessert and her day's wages. she decided to search for the crystal in the sea. Misfortunes continued, and people were in danger, but the demoness saved them all by approaching the places with the most bad luck to find the precious crystal. She spent the whole day on that task. She lost her demon form at sunset and cried, lamenting her failure to find anything. But suddenly, thanks to the darkness of the night, a reddish light began to emerge from under the water. She finally collected a pile of crystal fragments, although she wasn't paid for her day's work. Another day, Drudge ran into Jahy at the park. The maid couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk to her idol. The chibi demon was in a very good mood thanks to her recent acquisition, so she told Drudge that she should take a break. Drudge was moved by her concern. Jahy even offered her a seat beside her. At this point, the maid felt that her behavior was too strange. In the demon realm, she could enjoy being trampled by the great Jahy, working until she almost died, being insulted and humiliated. However, the kind treatment she was receiving now didn't satisfy her fetishistic emotions. She was disappointed with the changes her mistress had undergone. Jahy wondered if she had already discovered all the lies she had invented. She tried to explain herself, but Drudge only asked to be scolded, to be treated cruelly, to be treated like garbage, an insect, or something despicable. When Jahy finally understood her twisted thoughts, she could only feel disgust for her sick masochistic mind. Drudge was excited by her look of repulsion, finally satisfied. Jahy barely managed to make Drudge continue admiring her. The blonde magical girl not only destroyed the demon realm but also completely changed Jahy's life, making her live in a deplorable and humiliating way. It was time to get revenge and end her once and for all. Now she had the help of the crystals she collected at the beach. She appeared before the girl disguised as a student and revealed her true identity as one of the demons from the kingdom she annihilated. Of course, the blonde would defend herself against the attacks. But now Jahy had weapons and powers at her disposal. The magical girl claimed she would take her crystals, and her goal was to destroy them all completely because she received a divine order to do so. Jahy couldn't believe she intended to bear the weight of the world on her own. The blonde explained that it was always due to her bad luck, but now she could do something positive with it, feeling a kind of connection with people who transmit their misfortunes to her. Jahy understood that she simply didn't like being alone. She herself had always relied on someone's support to survive in the human world. She took the weapon from the magical girl and offered her a deal. If she handed over all the crystals, she would be free from her bad luck, and Jahy wouldn't leave her alone. She would also love her, and they would be friends. After their agreement, the girl began to exhibit obsessive behavior. She searched for her everywhere and at all times. Jahy began to investigate who could have ordered her to destroy the demon realm to free humans from misfortune, but she had few clues. She accompanied the girl to her house to retrieve the crystals and found the place filled with an excess of bad luck. The room where she kept the crystals hadn't even been opened since a black shadow emerged from it. Without fear, Jahy calmly entered, and what she found left her in shock. There was a girl. The blonde wanted to attack her and was struck by Jahy. The little girl was none other than the queen of the dark world. The girl believed that the demon king was the giant mana crystal that she destroyed, but Jahy explains that it was more like her heart, and her body is made with it. That's why by gathering enough crystals, she can manifest herself. During dinner, the queen devoured all the food, leaving poor Jahy hungry, but she rewarded her with a piece of octopus, which Jahy took as a sign of her affection. The magical girl later recounted how she almost drowned in a cold lake one day. That's when a voice entrusted her with the mission to find the crystals and bestowed her with her powers. Jahy concludes that to restore her kingdom, she must also defeat that enemy. Some of her problems have been solved, but now the demon queen prefers to stay with the schoolgirl because of all the good food she provides. That breaks the little demon's heart, and she leaves in a sea of tears. Despite the disappointment of the previous day, Jahy still felt proud of her recent achievements. That's why she eagerly awaited Kokura, who would surely praise her again. But their meeting was interrupted by the harassment of the magical girl. To evade her, Jahy told the girl that they needed to run away from the student because she attracted bad luck. But when they escaped, the girl believed they were playing tag and caught Jahy, then ran away with Kokura. In the end, they played in the park. Jahy scolded her friend for being kind to the woman who destroyed her world, but Kokura told them to forget the past because they were friends. The demon was tired of having to endure that obsessive friendship. The last straw was finding her at her workplace as the new employee. For the first time, she learned her name, Kyoko, who would be her apprentice at the restaurant. Jahy was furious that it had come to the point of being harassed at work, but it turned out to be a mere coincidence. Kyoko found the advertisement for employees. Now that Jahy had freed her from her troubles, she needed a reason to live and wanted to do it for the happiness of her loved ones, but she needed money for that. In reality, the demon queen ate too much, so she had to restock the pantry frequently. The good thing about it was that Jahy got herself an assistant, or so she thought, because Kyoko was a complete disaster. All she did was give Jahy more work. The manager took pity on the student, telling her that Jahy wasn't good at first either. The demon decided to give her some training and discovered a small mana crystal in her hair that was responsible for all the mess she caused. Now she could be sure that her assistant would do better. The The problem was that she would have to tolerate her crazy obsessive friend every day. Later, the manager prepared a tasting of dishes to choose a new one for the menu. The mischievous little demon didn't miss the opportunity to suggest dishes she had never been able to eat, just to be able to taste them. That's how she finally got the beefsteak she had longed for, but couldn't afford due to its exorbitant price at the supermarket. The ecstasy she felt from the meat had no comparison, not even with the dishes in the demon realm. For the first time, she enjoyed something so excellent. But then the landlady arrived, who discovered the trick she used to deceive her sister and demanded an apology. In the midst of their argument, the demon queen appeared with a plate of white rice. Jahy immediately knew she would lose all her food. Indeed, the little girl devoured everything in a second and asked for more. But Kyoko convinced her to go home and buy sweets. The queen was becoming more attached to the magical girl, which caused a lot of pain to poor Jahy. In the same expensive cafeteria as always, Jahy meets up with Drudge again to tell her the big news about the demon queen. Her servant expressed her admiration, but couldn't ignore the insolent human who dared to sit next to her beloved mistress. She could tolerate it even less when the girl claimed to be friends with the great Jahy. The worst part is that the demon couldn't deny the friendship she offered in exchange for the crystals. Drudge couldn't bear the urge to annihilate the insolent Kyoko, who spoke about the affection offered by Jahy. The servant couldn't stand having her mistress insulted in that way. Both of them established a challenge, where the one who collected the most crystals would be worthy of being called the person closest to the great Jahy. It turned out to be convenient for the demon as she would easily obtain crystals. Of course, if we ignore the fact that they left her alone without paying the bill and she had to wash the dishes in the cafeteria. Sarva appears again. This time she sets traps on the street during Jahy's route to work. Her perfect plan consists of making her fall into the traps to defeat her. She had been studying her routine for days to know when to strike. But now an unexpected factor is added. Jahy has a stalker. When passing by the trap, the second strongest demon in the dark world completely avoided it. Instead, it was Kyoko who fell into the trap, expecting to be rescued by her friend who ignored her without hesitation. Sarva was shocked that an innocent human fell into her deadly trap, but when she tried to help her, the girl had already destroyed it. Later, she fell into another trap. Jahy once again ignored her friend's cries for help. Sarva couldn't believe how easily the human broke the traps, so she decided to try one herself, only to realize that they really worked and caused quite a bit of pain. The demon queen couldn't contain her desire to eat everything in her path. Kyoko was worried about the limits of her pantry. Jahy told her that in the demon realm, she was the only one who could understand what the queen said. That's why she gave her everything she needed. In return, the queen was the core of power in the realm, and Jahy could use part of her powers that came from the crystals. Now Kyoko understood why the queen was spoiled, not knowing how to do anything else other than eat and sleep. Jahy was upset that they insulted her venerable queen and said that she didn't act out of self-interest. That didn't change the fact that Kyoko always found her slacking off. Druje's idolatry towards Jahy knew no bounds. This time she invested her company's money in a clothing brand in her honor, although the great Jahy didn't even notice. The fervent devotion of the servant led her to visit her beloved mistress at the restaurant, where she encountered her new rival. Ryuko boasted about spending a lot of time with Jahy every day. Drudge couldn't control her murderous expression. However, she couldn't cause a commotion in her mistress's establishment. She calmly took a table, noticing that Kyoko was a complete disaster at serving food. The incredulous servant couldn't understand why her mistress kept such an useless person in her service. Furthermore, she would die of jealousy when Jahy scolded, insulted, and hit Kyoko in the same way she did to her in the dark realm. In the end, her twisted masochistic mind twisted her thoughts, justifying Jahy's behavior, who hit the other girl in front of her only as a kind of psychological punishment towards her favorite servant, Drudge. The servant left at the end of the night, not without locking eyes with her most hated rival. Jahy couldn't care less about her subordinates' problems. She had a much more important matter to attend to. She couldn't sleep. She went to the supermarket for a new futon. After all the progress she had made, she deserved to spend money on a luxury item. So she bought the most expensive one. The futon had a kind of spell that made anyone who used it fall asleep, but she couldn't enjoy it for long when they announced a water cutoff in the apartments, and she had to stay with the landlady. The manager noticed that her small body had grown a little and dressed her in her childhood clothes as if she were a doll. At night, her boss insisted that they all sleep together. The great Jahy once again confirmed how much her own personality had changed since coming to the human world. For this time, she took refuge in the warmth she shared with another person and even agreed to move in with them. She soon learned that appearances can be deceiving. The manager was a kind of karate expert, throwing kicks while sleeping. The great Jahy couldn't stand another second in that house. Sarva appeared again, but this time she wasn't carrying out any evil plan. Instead, she was enveloped by a strange yellow light similar to the one that enveloped Kyoko when she was about to die. In that moment, she heard a voice telling her, "End the misfortune." As the light disappeared, her appearance was slightly different, and her magical powers and physical abilities increased. She didn't know what had happened, but it would definitely help her fight against Jahy. For the first time, she confronted the second strongest in the dark world face to face. But she didn't expect that the great Jahy wouldn't even recognize her. She introduced herself as the third strongest who wanted to defeat her in order to conquer the dark world. Sarva was hit by the power of the light just like the magical girl. Jahy couldn't fully understand the situation as she was being attacked by surprise with a lightsaber. That seemed very powerful. Sarva struck her hundreds of times with her illuminated sword, but it didn't cause the slightest harm to the demon. Jahy had already regained her powers thanks to the monocrystals. In fact, she was stronger than when she was in her own world. So Sarva had no choice but to flee, saddened by her misfortune. Jahy was puzzled by what had happened, but she left it at that. Another day, she saw Kokura on the street, but her best friend ran away from her. Jahy was devastated and sought advice on how to reconcile without even knowing the reason for her friend's coldness. In the end, she chased after her, and it turned out that the girl had a toothache and didn't want to infect Jahy. That problem was easily resolved, but the great Jahy had another concern, the strange light that granted magical powers. At the same time, rumors circulated in the neighborhood about a ghost that appeared, offering people power and turning them into specters. That night, Jahy herself was attacked by the mysterious creature, which consisted of an amorphous figure composed of yellow light. It asked Jahy if she wanted to obtain power. When the chibi demon refused, the light demanded that she hand over the monocrystals. Jahy didn't have time to transform and was on the verge of getting hurt, but Drudge appeared to save her. Faced with the unusual situation and unaware of the level of power of the creature, Jahy asked Drudge to support her in the fight. Drudge received the greatest honor she could imagine in her life. Her fervent devotion began when the great Jahy was the only one to accept her despite her detestable power. Drudge was confessing all her feelings to her mistress when they had to confront an enemy who took advantage of her distraction to disappear. But now Jahy understood that she herself made an effort not to disappoint Drudge, as her servant was the person who admired and revered her the most. After that, Jahy had the idea of opening her own restaurant to become independent. The landlady was very angry that she wanted to leave her sister. On the other hand, the manager offered her full support. Jahy didn't have time to be moved when the strange light appeared, turning the manager into a magical girl. At that moment, Kyoko arrived, surprised, and the chibi demon lamented not being able to save her. The employees' greatest fear was that their boss would obey the light creature. But when the creature ordered her to steal the crystals from her girls, the manager scolded it for attempting something so evil. The situation became chaotic. The creature became fed up and decided to attack on its own, revealing its true form as a pink chibi identical to the demon queen. Jahy couldn't comprehend her surprise when her queen appeared to counter the attacks. The two girls, who looked like twins, engaged in an impressive battle, transforming into giant dwarfs taller than buildings. Their monumental powers were in imminent danger. Jahy did what she could to stop a stray energy ball, but she couldn't protect the restaurant. She asked for help from the manager, who now had powers, but it was useless. She only had Kyoko to rely on to protect the city. Meanwhile, she stood between the two goddesses, taking all the damage on herself. She collapsed, unconscious like a fragile injured child. No one could believe that Jahy could die. Even the two goddesses set aside their battle, and the pink chibi apologized for what had happened. She confessed that she didn't want to hurt anyone. She just wanted to do something to get her older sister's attention. She then revealed that she hadn't seen her sister since she created the demon realm. That's why she turned Kyoko into a magical girl to help her contact her sister. But the magical girl turned out to be too strong and destroyed her, turning her into tiny pieces. Then she ordered Kyoko to collect the crystals to bring back her sister, but she handed them all over to Jahy. Jahy listened to the whole story, pretending to be unconscious, unable to believe everything she had to endure because of a simple sisterly fight. She unleashed all her anger against the pink chibi, demanding an apology. She wanted a sincere apology, to look her in the eyes and say it loud and clear. Although the sisters reconciled, she was still not satisfied after all the hardship she had experienced in the human world. With everything settled, life went on. The manager's establishment closed for repairs, and Jahy was given a farewell party because she was going to open her own place. Drudge brought her the options and budgets she had researched for setting it up. But obviously, the servant didn't take into account that Jahy's savings were extremely limited. The mischievous little demon used her cunning once again and appointed Drudge to take care of everything related to the restaurant. Everyone was delighted with the news that Jahy would continue working with the manager, and the party in honor of Jahy and the pink chibi continued. Although Jahy was very annoyed by that, regardless of the circumstances, she was integrating more and more into the world of humans every day. She found Kokura at the market dressed in traditional attire as she was going to participate in a ritual at a temple. At first, Jahy didn't pay much attention. But when some children started bothering the girl to prove who was better, Jahy decided to support her friend and help her defeat them. As they paraded through the local shops, everyone cheered for them, just like when she was in the Dark Realm. In the end, Jahy won the prize for the most effort put in by a child. Every day, the human world moved her more. Of course, until she opened the prize and found out it was just toys for children. Another person who also ended up enjoying the festival activities was Sarva, who was recruited by the manager to participate in various activities. However, she had to endure the humiliation of being caught by Jahy while wearing a Brazilian garota costume. At the end of the night, all the girls who had been living a crazy adventure in the human world gathered by the river to watch the fireworks. Kokura asked her best friend to please accompany her to the festival next year as well. Despite not coming to the human world by choice, the great Jahy wished, just a little bit, to stay longer in that city. Although she felt like she was forgetting something, surely it wasn't anything important. And that's how the first season of this anime ends. If you've reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you've been one of the few people to make it this far. So comment the word monster in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.